We have had a very tough 2020. Almost everything has been out of our control. Let's focus the next 2 hours on a positive note. Let's celebrate collaboration. Let's celebrate unexpected connections. Let's celebrate unexpected business connections that can turn businesses around, but perhaps also create friendship and togetherness in the community. Before we start our program, we have a greeting from a supporter who could not be here today, but who very kindly recorded a message that we will transmit to you now.
Beyond actual collaboration and knowledge sharing, this initiative also shows us that at the heart of it all, global MNCs and local SMEs are actually not that different from one another. They might differ in size, but many global companies and small enterprises share similar traits in wanting to innovate, reach new markets, and contribute positively back to society.
This year, COVID-19 has disrupted the lives and livelihoods of people around the world. Our businesses, including the SMEs that form the backbone of the Singaporean and Swedish economies, have had to find new ways to operate in an unfamiliar climate riddled with uncertainty. Many of our local businesses have adapted by learning different business models and incorporating greater digitalization and innovation in their operations. To ride out this current period of global uncertainty, Sweden and Singapore must continue to collaborate, exchange ideas, and source for opportunities together. Such cooperation between our two nations is nothing new, as economic ties already form the cornerstone of our strong bilateral relationship.
When Minister Chan Chun Sing talks about contributing to the society, I think that is something that is a very, very strong sense in Singapore society and in Swedish society, that businesses and citizens and governments, that we all have to do our bit for the societies we work in. And that is another very nice thing about this initiative.
A big part of my adulting life, I cook for people. After work, I go home, I cook, host dinner parties, and I enjoyed the reaction of people enjoying my food. Now, Network SG has been around for 1 year approximately. COVID happened, and then now suddenly out of the blue, I received a call from NEA and saying, "Come on, Electrolux wants to work with you." It's like, okay.
So I met with Carmal for lunch the first time, and that we started to really, explore different ideas. And he has really been a great inspiration in the area of resilience, passion for innovation. And despite how different we may seem in terms of size and scale and business model, we're quite similar at the core. And I think this passion for food and taste was very evident when you came to our offices. And I think you have been a great reminder for us in terms of looking for new opportunities and being flexible and looking for those new ways. I think that agility has been super important, especially in these times. And I wish that many of my colleagues, especially as I run finance, you are not always the most agile organization.
And I think this initiative that you have is a seed or a crucible for something that's actually very powerful. The multinationals of Sweden working with our SMEs, and the story that you heard earlier, who would have thought the CFO of Electrolux is working with a founder of a ramen company? But in that unexpected interaction, you're finding new gems of innovation. Big companies are today struggling to innovate for new markets. We are starting to see multinationals that we work with in EDB in all industries who are trying to transform themselves, trying to work closely with the local ecosystems deliberately, because increasingly a lot of ideas for new business models, new products, new services, and new growth for multinationals is coming from these partnerships with the broader ecosystem, with the SMEs, with the startup. And I think the role of ESG, EDB, and IMDA moving forward is to see how can we bring that connections to bear in a much more scalable fashion. And I think over here, SESG is showing us the way forward of how we can do that. So thank you very much for that.
So there are programs like the e-commerce booster package or the food delivery booster package, which allowed companies to come on board, companies who've never come on board digital platforms to come on board very quickly, of course at a very subsidized rate. And within that 2 months, I understand about 10,000 companies came on board the food delivery package. About 2,000 companies came on board the e-commerce delivery package. And the online sales went from something like 100 million to 190 million just within 2 months.
And what happened here during the early days of the COVID period, when this discussion started, it was so heartwarming and good to see. And it actually started at the virtual fika, as Lisa said here. And instead of looking inwards, we started to look outwards, to do something together instead of just looking inwards and concentrating on our internal life.
At heart of our industry and our work would be the open mindset to things. When we approach a problem or just a task, we're always trying to be as open-minded as possible. We assume that we know nothing about the outcome. And I think that approach is quite inspiring. I think when you approach things as you don't know the answers, just with an open mindset, you tend to get the best, strongest ideas out of that. And I think this whole initiative is inspiring in that sense. And I think that's also the core of the message here. Like, in times of crisis, we need to open doors rather than close them.
When I took my family to his restaurant, Ashes Burnnit, and on the Sunday afternoon, Lisa was there as well. And when we were done, my 12-year-old said, "Papa, you have to do business with them. Their burgers are so good. You have to do this." That was the approval that we were on the right track. But it was really fantastic what we saw there, how he is managing his second business already at that time. So, and I can still tell you, there's a lot of links to each other. And as I said, it doesn't matter what size of the company is. The opportunities, the challenges, the problems, they are all the same. It doesn't matter.
The hawker centers in Singapore, right now, we need younger entrepreneurs inside. More young people with the motivation to actually innovate and create food. So that's where, I feel that hopefully in the near future I could be an example to them, like how I did starting a burger store. Who would have thought that you would start a burger store in a hawker center? From there, right, Mr. Horst, we discussed, he has 10,000 employees. I have 10. So how do I train from there? How do I grow from there? So it was a very, very fulfilling discussion. And of course, having the approval of his son, that was one of the major factors that, every business could have.
Well, the biggest surprise for me when we first were roped into the initiative was the accessibility that we had to the top leaders of the company we were paired with. Marie Helene, she's from Axis. She's been at the stall, she's been to both my stalls. This relationship that we've built was very surprising because at the end of the day, she came down, we would chat about everything. She writes a blog, and she talk about her work and how good my pumpkin spice latte is.
It was a really personal step for me because I used to, the family business has a very strong emotional attachment to me. I have a strong emotional attachment to it actually. To take over the business and to try to do something meaningful, especially in this environment where business is becoming very difficult to do, is something very personally fulfilling and meaningful to me.
Then, of course, the more lovely step is when we met Amber, and we started to interact with the local SME here. And it was just when the lockdown was over, I think we started interacting and we could, you know, go back to work a little bit. And everybody was a little bit depressed, perhaps, staying at home for some time. And then we met Amber, right? And I remember first time I was in her shop on a Saturday, and it's a small little coffee shop, and there were 4 girls behind the desk, and there was like baking cakes, and it was things happening, and it was so much energy.
I think what really interested us about this initiative was the partnerships was not just limited to healthcare, which was broader than that. And when we came to know that we were going to be paired with Mrs. Prema Mahalingam from Arya Creations, we were really excited to work with her. Hi, Prema. And I think, you know, again, as the theme of the morning, new and unexpected relationships or partnerships, I think this was another example of that. On the surface, we were like, you know, where do we start? I mean, very different companies. Prema runs a boutique garment firm, you know, and we are in biopharmaceuticals.
Small companies will lead the way. I think that the ability to innovate, to be flexible and to be nimble is something that I think the MNCs are quite, should we say, jealous of that ability that sits in an SME. So there is not just reason for optimism, there is a tremendous opportunity that we have ahead of us, and I think that Singapore is the place to be.
Trade is about secrets. I think all those Swedish companies, they sit with trade secrets, and that's what they want to trade with you. And probably the other way around, and they can sit and be jealous as how agile and how quickly you can adapt to the circumstances. And I think you should trade those secrets with those companies as well. And hopefully with this openness, this transparency, this trust, and this long-termness and trust that Sweden has built in Singapore, and is continuing to build and continuing also to be an integrated part, I think that's where